What's up, everyone? Today I'm going to be ranking the entire cast of Survivor 50 based on how likely they are to win the season. As of recording this video, the game has not been played yet, so luckily this power ranking won't be influenced by any potential leaks or spoilers. While making this list and writing this video, I probably made about 100 switches and I settled on a list that I'm fairly satisfied with. I feel like I'll definitely be proven wrong and I'm totally open for it, but let's just see how it goes. Starting at number 24, I think the person that is the most unlikely to win Survivor 50 is Mike White. I feel like because of his fame and the fact that he doesn't need the money, if he does somehow make it to the end, it'll be another scenario like David vs. Goliath where the jury is just going to pick a more deserving candidate to win. Someone who they feel belongs in their group as a Survivor All-Star, not somebody who basically got their way on the cast by being friends with Jeff Probst. I think it's highly unlikely for him to make it to the end based on physicality. The only thing positive about Mike White's game is his social game, and we'll see how it goes. Tying at number 22, I have Rizzo and Savannah from Survivor 49. Now, these are the alleged people that are making it onto the cast, so I can't really fairly assess how well they're gonna do. I'm only putting them above Mike because I'm fairly certain Mike is not winning the season. These two are highly disconnected from all the pre-gaming that went down pre-50. I also think that one of them could have possibly won Survivor 49. Something working against them is that they haven't had the opportunity to integrate and meet the other contestants outside of the game of Survivor. These guys just played Survivor 49, they came back home for a few weeks, and now they're flying right back out to play 50. The other castaways know as much about them as we do as the general public, and they honestly seem like easy pickings. I think for them, the hardest part will be staying alive in the pre-merge, but if they somehow survive, that's their only way of slipping by and making Final Tribal Council. I can't say much about them because we really don't know anything about them, so number 22 is where they're both going to land. All right, next up we have at number 21, I have Kyle from Survivor 48. Fresh off a win and being one of the two winners on this cast, I don't see a path for him to win this game. Now, yes, he's a winner, and yes, that means he must be good at the game of Survivor, but I feel that even if he were to somehow make it to Final Tribal Council, I don't see a world where he's able to convince a jury that they should let him be a two-time winner unless it was absolutely deserved. I think the hardest part about Kyle's game will just be staying alive throughout the entire game because his target is going to be massive just based on the fact that he's the most recent known winner of the game. At number 20, we have D from Survivor 45. Same sentiment as Kyle, I just don't see a world where a jury makes D a two-time winner. It's hard enough to make it to the end of a season as a winner in a non-all-winner season, so I feel like D would either have to win out or be socially integrated with the other New Era players perfectly in order to make it deep in the game. I only have her above Kyle because Kyle's win is so fresh in everyone's minds, and I feel like D would do a better job at flying under the radar. At number 19, I have Aubrey from Survivor Co-Wrong. I would have put Aubrey lower if I could have. I just don't think that she's making it to the end. And if she does, she'll be a GOAT that everyone wants to bring. I feel like her attitude while playing Survivor and even at Final Tribal Council is more of a whiny one. Like, I don't think she's really a likable cast member, and she's only on this cast because Amanda Kimmel dropped out last minute. Her spot on the cast already feels undeserved, and Jeff called her a strategic mastermind, but someone let me know what her biggest move was on any season she was on. Her performances on the seasons she's been on have been worse and worse every time, and I don't see a world where Aubrey is the winner of this season. At number 18, I have Colby Donaldson from Survivor the Australian Outback. I feel like realistically, he doesn't have too much of a chance to win this game either. His last appearance was Heroes vs. Villains, and he didn't do awful. I just feel like Colby has a lot of catching up to do if he wants to be able to adapt to a new era style of gameplay. I mean, we even saw in Heroes vs. Villains, I don't even think Colby's in his prime anymore, and this is sad. However, if he were able to make Final Tribal Council, I do see a world where a jury would vote for him to win. He just needs to make it there and have to have a lot on his resume, and that would be the hardest part, I fear. At number 17, I have Joe from Survivor 48. I don't really feel too confident with this pick at number 17, if I'm going to be totally honest. I feel like Joe is going to be a very big wild card this time around. Since Joe doesn't have someone like Eva to protect and completely throw his game away for, I feel like we're going to see a Joe like we've never seen before. We already know he's physically dominant in challenges, but strategically he was outplayed in a lot of scenarios in Survivor 48, which is essentially what crowned Kyle as the winner. I think with a lot of these second chance players coming in from the new era, it'll be interesting to see how they adapt their gameplay on their second go around. But for Joe, I think that he's such a recent player, it feels unlikely he wins against some of the other legends we have on the board. He's also one of 3 returnees from 48, and in my opinion, I feel like there's a big chance they get targeted early on because of that. but it'll really come down to how these tribes are divided. At number 16, we have Camilla from the same season, Survivor 48. Same thing with Joe. I feel like anyone returning from Survivor 48 is just not winning the season. But Camilla has the best chance out of the 3 that are returning to win based on the fact that she's a very good social player. I would have had her higher up on my list if I believed she'd be dominant in challenges, but in 48, I feel like she was the product of her tribe doing very well in the pre-merge, and that's kind of how she was able to situate herself into a good spot in the game. Not to take away from her game in 48, because I do think had she been in Final Tribal Council, there's a chance she actually beats Kyle. I just think that standing next to other big names in Final Tribal Council this time around, she may not stand a chance unless she plays a similar game to how she played in 48. At number 15, I have Q from Survivor 46. I feel like Q is a juggernaut type of player. I feel like this time around, all bets are off and he's coming for blood. There's a chance that he's the most feared player who's a non-winner coming out of the gate. And I feel like Q is great when it comes to challenges, but if he wants to make it far, he needs to work on his social game. I feel like Q was put in a pretty unfortunate scenario in 46, and the cards were never really in his favor for a long time. I felt like he probably could have won the season, but he needs to get better at situational awareness if he wants to make it to Final Tribal Council. If he makes it to FTC, which in my eyes is very unlikely, I feel like he could make a good pitch for himself since he's a good speaker. He's in the lower half of my list only because I think he's going to have a huge target on his head going in. At number 14, we have Ozzy. This is Ozzy's 5th Survivor appearance, and if you've seen every season like I have, you know Ozzy's average season placement is pretty high. I think putting a finger on his placement this season will be pretty hard though, because it's too volatile to predict, because it's been about a decade since we last saw him play. What he does have going for him is that he's recently been integrating himself with all the new era players, so his social game, I don't have any issues with as far as pre-gaming goes. My issue with Ozzy is that the fact that he's got the reputation going into this as this elite player, and even Jeff at Marooning will probably mention that him and Suri are joining the elite 5-timers club. And I feel like people are going to look at Ozzy as this unbeatable player if they let him get close to the end. So I predict him being a late merge boot if I had to guess. I think physically there's a chance he dominates in challenges, but that's a hard prediction to make considering we have people like Joe, Jonathan, and Q on this cast. I feel like in his prime, Ozzy was the force to be reckoned with when it came to a physical game, but he's stepping into a season where other males on this cast will definitely overshadow him. So he's really just a middle of the road player right now, and I don't know where he lands, and it's pretty up in the air to me. At number 13, I have Coach from Survivor Tocantins. I personally love Coach. I would love to have him be the winner of Survivor 50. I think he could actually win, since in the past he's been basically brought to the end as a GOAT every time, but this time I think the term GOAT for him would have a different meaning. I think he'd be the greatest of all time. Coach might be one of the bigger names on this cast, but I don't think that would work against him. I could see the new era players cling on to him as someone they would want to work with and go against the old schoolers, because in all honesty, Coach doesn't have many ties with some of the old school players except for Ozzy, Suri, and maybe Colby and Stephanie, since they all played on Heroes vs. Villains together. I think for Coach, his challenge will be surviving the first few rounds because he may not be as physically dominant as other people on his tribe, so there's a world where he could be picked off as a weaker member of his tribe. All in all, I would love to see a Coach win. I have no idea how a jury would feel about his game because, you know, he needs to play it first, but more than likely, I think his chances to win are somewhere in the middle of the road. At number 12, I have Rick Devins. I think Rick will be picking up right where he left off. I feel like for some reason, he's either going to come into the game like Tony did in Game Changers and everyone's just going to hard target him and Rick will have to idle hunt right off the bat. Or Rick might be able to play it cool. It just doesn't really help Rick because Jeff really does love him and the favoritism might show, which I really hope it doesn't. But the whole cast should be very aware that Rick is a volatile player, very similar to Ben from 35. And I think he's targeted very early because of it. I think in order for Rick to do well, his pre-merge tribe will have to just win out. At number 11, I have Charlie from Survivor 46. Listen, I know Charlie has a cult following and there's a lot of people out there that really love this guy, and unfortunately I'm not one of them. Do I think he deserved the win in 46? I mean, like, kinda. Like, I'm usually a firm believer that the jury is always right because there really isn't a wrong way to vote for somebody to win Survivor, and there really isn't a right way to play Survivor. Now, did he play the best strategic game in his season? Yeah. Do I think he's fun to watch? Not really. I think he had probably the most boring confessionals from that season. But aside from my opinions on his 46 gameplay, I'm hearing he's been leading the most pre-game alliances going into this season, and whether that's true or not, I can see it. I think that Charlie may have to go toe-to-toe against the Riz God himself to see who has more charisma. And God, please kill me. This is not what I wanted for this season. Fuck. I just think that Charlie does have a decent amount of charm where I feel like he'd be able to downplay his threat level. I think because he's such an overrated player, I think that'll actually work in his favor, because I think with a stacked cast like this, it'll be hard for Charlie to have any agency when he's got a lot of people already sizing him up and trying to prove themselves that Charlie isn't as great as everyone says he is. Do I think Charlie wins if he makes it to Final Tribal Council? I don't think so. I think if he had as much charisma as everyone says he does, he would have won 46. So yeah, when I started writing this one, I had Charlie at the number 3 spot, but thinking of it, I'm definitely putting him lower, and that's why he's at number 11. At number 10, I have Stephanie LaGrossa from Survivor Palau. Stephanie, believe it or not, is actually one of my favorite Survivor players of all time, and actually like one of my favorite Survivor stories of all time. And I hated having to see her go so soon in Heroes vs. Villains, but with that being said, I think Stephanie has a great chance to go far in this season, not only because I feel like she could be well connected and protected by players like Sari, Ozzy, and some of the other old schoolers, but Stephanie is not as big of a threatening player like she was in her prime. You gotta remember that this is a new Stephanie that we're about to see. Yes, she was one of Survivor's legendary figures in the mid-2000s, but so many players have come and gone since Stephanie that have overshadowed her and actually won seasons, like Natalie Anderson or Michelle Fitzgerald, where as far as Survivor goes, she's not a big threat to bring along. I could actually see her making it pretty deep. However, I feel like fans wouldn't appreciate this because I feel like it could call for a boring season. Like, she's not the most entertaining player, in my opinion. However, I think she pulls out a win if she makes it to FTC. At number 9, I have Christian Ubicki from Survivor David vs. Goliath. I don't really know what to expect from a Christian return. Like, I can't really picture what an FTC with Christian would look like, but he's really great at the game as far as strategy is concerned. I think that he may be first to work with Mike and Angelina, and I don't want to see him get targeted over that little clique because honestly, I have no idea who else on the cast he could work with. One person I think would make for an incredible duo with Christian, and I could totally see a repeat of Gabby versus Christian from David vs. Goliath, would be an Emily Flippin and Christian alliance, but this is just me throwing shots in the dark. I have no idea how Christian will perform for me, and it's 50-50 whether a jury takes him serious enough and gives him the win. The problem that I have with Christian is that he's already been through this really transformative experience on 37, which honestly would have given him so much more clout in the jury had he made it to the end of his original season. But I don't see how Christian is going to be able to evolve his story again in order for people to really resonate with naming him as the representative of their season of Survivor 50. I hope he proves me wrong because I do love this guy and I would love to see him win. At number 8, I have Jonathan from Survivor 42. Now, need I say less about Jonathan? He was probably a fire-making challenge away from winning Survivor 42. I mean, let's be honest. He's one of Survivor's most physical forces ever. And in my eyes, there's no chance he's taken out pre-jury. Whenever we see the tribe divisions for this season, we can probably assume that whoever's on his tribe is making a deep run into the game. I wouldn't be surprised if production handpicked tribes and threw some people on there with him like Sari or maybe even Mike White. I think the obvious assumption is that Jonathan will be a merge threat and may have to comp out in order to stay in the game. I'm uncertain on how well he would do in FTC, but I think if he had to put money on if he makes it to at least Final 10, I would put money on Jonathan. At number 7, I have Genevieve from Survivor 47. When I originally was making this list, I had Genevieve at my number 3 spot, but as I said earlier, I've been making a lot of swaps as I'm writing this video. I think Genevieve has a lot going for her. She's going to be great at flying under the radar. She's probably one of, if not the least threatening female player on this cast, so I think she's going to do fine in that department. Where I do start to worry about Genevieve is the fact that she's a newer player. I feel like even though she'll be in this new era Cool Kids Club, I feel like there's a chance that people are reminded of how cutthroat of a player she played in her original season, and people may not be so quick to align with her. I think what really confirms this opinion for me is the Keyshawn vote from her season, and of course the fact that she pulled off Operation Italy, which as many people like to title it as one of the top 3 new era moves that were made in the game. I don't think she'll have any issue adapting to a new cast, but I think that the perception she has coming to the game, especially because her season just aired so recently, is going to work against her. At number 6, I have Angelina from Survivor 37. I think we're in for a way more self-aware version of Angelina this time around. She was already trolling on Instagram, posting pictures of all the jackets she's planned on bringing onto the island before the show, and I do think Angelina will be a part of the joke instead of being the joke this time around. My only worry with Angelina's game this time around is that she doesn't seem like the type of player to be brought to the end as a GOAT, where I feel like if she does make FTC, there's a good chance she does win. As far as how well I think she's going to do this season, to me, it's pretty unknown. Like, my gut tells me she'll be overshadowed by a lot of other players, so she won't be too big of a threat in the early game. So there's a good chance she'll be able to blend in and fly under the radar as long as she's not negotiating for rice or playing how she played in her first season. I'm excited to see what this version of Angelina brings us this time around. At number 5, I have Emily Flippin from Survivor 45. To be honest, I'm quite shocked that Emily is even on this season. Not because I don't think she's deserving of a spot, but because she's been very vocal about not even wanting to play again. And she even told me to my face that she wouldn't play again. But boy, am I pleasantly surprised. I think this time around, we're going to get a version of Emily that was similar to how she was in the last few rounds of Survivor 45. I think Emily evolved as a person on Survivor, similar to the likes of Cass when she came back and played on Second Chance, similar to Holly on Nicaragua, or even Rob with 2 Bs from Survivor Thailand. But in all seriousness, I feel like this cast is going to love playing with Emily. I have a personal bias towards her because she's one of the handful of people I've actually had the pleasure to meet before, and I know she's going to have a killer social game this time. I think Emily is pretty capable of having a great FTC performance if she does make it, and to be honest, considering how bad she did in 45 and still made it to Final 7, I'd say there's a pretty good chance Emily makes it deep yet again. At number 4, I have Cirie Fields from Survivor Panama. If we're being totally honest with ourselves, the only way Cirie Fields wins Survivor 50 is if she makes it to FTC. And like, yeah, you're probably like, yeah, well, that is how you win Survivor. But hear me out. Listen, I would put her lower on the list, but the fact that I think that she automatically wins the season, she somehow is able to make it to FTC, puts her this high on my list. I think Cirie's fate on this season could be similar to her fate in Heroes vs. Villains. The early game will probably be her biggest struggle because if she's causing her tribe to lose challenges, I could see a world where she's ganged up on and voted out due to physical ability. And honestly, I would hate to see that for Cirie. But that's where my head is leaning at right now. Now, if there are some equitable comps in the beginning of the season to compensate for there being AARP picks for this season, then Cirie could have a chance. I just think that people will be smart enough to realize if she does make it to the end that she'll win, but Cirie has a social game like no other, so only time will tell. At number 3, I have Jenna from Survivor Borneo. I think similar to Cirie, I think if Jenna makes it to the end, she probably wins. Right now, she's like my dark horse winner to win because she's kept up with Survivor in the recent years. She knows what to expect as far as new era gameplay goes. I think as a representative of the first season of Survivor, that's enough for anyone to vote for her as the winner. I think she'd be a great representative of Survivor 50, and there's a lot on the line for Jenna. I feel like she understands, along with many other on the cast, that this is probably her last time she'll ever play Survivor. So without a doubt, I can see her killing it with her social game and trying to take out as many new era people as possible. I'm rooting for her. I think if you're a fan of Survivor, you kind of have to root for Jenna. Again, like with so many people on this list, I think her biggest challenge is just staying alive in the early stages of the game before merge. At number 2, I have Tiffany from Survivor 46. I'm going to be very honest. I don't think Tiffany should be on this cast, and I feel like everyone knows it. I don't hate Tiffany. In fact, I actually find her very endearing, and I think that as a person, she's awesome. I think people, including myself, find her being on this cast as a huge question mark, but I think that this will ultimately work for Tiffany. She's going to be positioned very well going into the game, and I believe that she has the opportunity to make it deep in the game and win FTC if she makes it there. I think she's compelling enough where she could sway a jury, but I think the only thing working against her is the same thing that's helping her. The fact that she's a questionable pick in the season is what's going to camouflage her for most of the game. Tiffany is going to have to make an incredible case for herself, unless once she gets to FTC, she's up against some of the biggest names on the show. She's got to have something good on her resume. I still feel confident having Tiffany up this high because I feel out of anyone, she's got a really good chance at making it deep in the game. And at number 1, I have Chrissy Hofbeck from Survivor 35. I feel very confident that Chrissy has the best chance to win the season. I think that she was able to make a great case for herself in Heroes vs. Healers vs. Hustlers, but sadly, it was during a season where someone was making flashier moves than her, and at that time in the game, Survivor juries were rewarding that type of gameplay over others. I feel like had Survivor 35 occurred in the new era, I feel Chrissy wins almost unanimously, and I think that if she plays with the same sentiment that she played her first time around, it'll do great for her. I think she plays more of a heroic game that juries today respect, and I think out of a lot of the women on this cast, she does have a chance to make a deep run, and I'd love to see it because she's been waiting so long to make this return. She's finally got the opportunity now, and I have faith that she could do it. All right, everyone, that is my list. If you've agreed, disagreed, let me know down in the comments below. If you want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe. We're so close to hitting 10,000 subscribers. It is a milestone that I've been waiting to hit for a very long time. So it would mean the absolute world to me if you hit that subscribe button and stuck around to see more videos that I make in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the future.